Piñas Adventures Number 1. By Mark Lopez. Chapter 1. Piña the chicken flew as far as she could, then stopped and looked up at Mark, who was standing next to her. "I don't think you should be flying like that," Mark told her, shaking his head. The two were sitting on a hillside in a small town called Riaja de la Cava, near the city of Nuevo León. They had been sitting there since they'd gotten off the bus that had brought them. "I just wanted to show you something," Piña told him, looking at Mark and smiling shyly. "It's not important." "Come on, now, tell me what it is," Mark asked her, putting an arm around her shoulders. Piña loved him for saying that to her. He was the only person besides her parents that ever did. She'd never talked to anyone else about her dream to fly like the bird. She sighed. Okay, but you promised. No laughing or making fun of me, please." Mark nodded solemnly. "Of course I promise, little one. Now, what's so special?" Piña took a deep breath. Then, before Mark could change his mind, Piña began to speak. "I want to fly, just like a bird." Piña explained she couldn't look him in the eye, as if her words would give out if she looked into his dark brown eyes. "I want to go where nobody can see. I want to see places I have never seen before. Places nobody knows about. I want to know everything. And I want to know it all today." She paused, waiting for Mark's reaction. But he wasn't looking at her at all. Instead he was staring at a small bird, perched on the tree branch across the road. He reached over and stroked its tiny head. "You're going to be such a good wing beater," he whispered quietly to it. "Yes," Piña said. "That's what I want to do. I want to go flying everywhere." Suddenly Mark spoke again. "I know someone who'd love to take care of your flight training," he offered. "Who is it?" Piña asked with excitement. "It's another fellow chicken, just like you," Mark began. "Her name is White and I think you two will get along. She might even be able to help you with your first flight. She's kind of like you." He gave a small laugh. "She's a bit shy, though," Mark continued. "She's also super cute. That's why I took you here," Mark said. "I knew you wanted to fly ever since you were a chick. That's why we traveled here, because this place is where White the chicken can be found. Can we stay here forever?" Piña asked eagerly, leaning toward Mark. Mark shrugged his shoulders and patted Piña's back. "Only time will tell, sweetheart. Just remember that when people start talking about this, White the chicken will be the best wingbeater there is." "Why won't other wingbeaters fly?" Piña asked. "She's still learning about the human world." Piña had always lived in a tiny country village, where nobody talked about other races. "They don't fly because they're afraid of humans," Mark replied. "There used to be a time in history when chickens were the main livestock on Earth." "What happened to that?" Piña asked with interest. She hadn't met many animals that didn't need to eat meat yet. "They got bigger and stronger," Mark explained. "So, instead of having birds for food, there were cattle. They made a mistake and killed chickens instead. So then, humans started catching cattle, too, and killing them too. So now it's illegal to raise a chicken, except by the government." "So how did you get me?" Piña asked curiously. "I am a chicken." Piña's voice sounded a little whiny now. She hated hearing people say things like that. She didn't understand how the government had been able to kill chicken without any trial at all. Maybe that was what humans liked about chickens, she thought. Mark put an arm around her shoulder and squeezed her gently. "You'll figure it out soon enough, my little one," he said comfortingly. Piña smiled brightly at that. It was true. She was smart. Chapter 2. Piña and Mark stood together in front of a large stone wall. The stone wall was 100 meters long. It is now 2 months later. By now, Piña has learned how to fly by taking lessons from White. Mark told her it was called a wall, and was a barrier between this town and some larger towns further away. It had many gates with locks to keep out trespassers, or those that dared break through and steal food. "This is the entrance to the park," Mark told her as they walked around the wall. "Every day this wall is cleaned so no one can climb over it." Mark pointed to the right. "Those gates are there so you know which way to go when you leave." He pointed at a door next to the left gate. "The gate there is where you leave and go to the park. You can see the animals there from there. He pointed down the other end of the wall where there was a dirt path leading down a small slope. Over there you come to a forest. The forest goes up to about a mile until it reaches the mountain and the city. Then road starts heading north. If you keep walking straight ahead along this road you will reach the park eventually. You just follow the path, and you'll find it pretty easy to find the animals you'll be spending your days with. Piña listened to all of this with fascination. She never knew that there were so many different kinds of animals that existed. Piña had been born in Puerto Rico, in the mountains of northern Spain, and she had been growing up around the animals she came to call her family. They weren't really hers, they belonged to someone else, but she had always loved them. The fact that they were so close and that they had been with her throughout almost every moment of her life had allowed her to love them. Some of them, she even had named her favorite ones, and although most of them were very young, she was sure that someday she would be able to learn to fly. Just like White the chicken, they continued their tour, going to the zoo, the aquarium, and finally ending up at the park. Piña loved the park. She was used to being surrounded by lots of trees, grass, and wildlife, and this had the same effect on her. As they approached the gate, they saw a woman holding a camera. Hey, hi, Mom, is there a special reason you have a camera in hand? Mark asked the woman, grinning from ear to ear. She looked at him and laughed. Oh yeah, there is. My daughter and I were just trying to capture the whole day's beauty for posterity, the woman said. Piña frowned. A posterity, she wondered to herself. What does that mean? The woman pulled a slip of paper out of her pocket. Here, you've got your ticket. Please hold the gate open and make sure you don't lose any of our animals. Okay, Mark chuckled. We won't lose anyone, Mom. I'm gonna show Piña around today. She's gonna be your official wingbeater. Piña grinned widely, bouncing excitedly while flapping her wings. After all, Piña is a chicken, and that's what chickens do when they get excited. Alrighty, you two have a nice day, said the woman as she placed her camera on top of the wooden barricade. Thanks, Mom. Bye, said Mark, waving. He turned to face Piña, smiling. I hope you're not scared, my sweet one. We'll be fine. Piña nodded eagerly. Okay, follow me, and watch for the butterflies. Mark led her past the entrance, and over to a path running through the forest. Piña could hear the buzz of many insects singing as they flew above, and she couldn't wait to go exploring. After they had passed through the woods, which were thick with bushes, and into open air, they came to a clearing, where Mark indicated the butterfly cages. There were 4 of them lined up against a wall, each holding a beautiful blue butterfly. Piña walked up to the nearest cage, and peered inside. Inside was a small blue butterfly with dark brown speckles. Piña stared intently at the insect, studying every detail of its body, from the color of its eyes to the patterns of its wings. She could barely contain her excitement at seeing the insect for the first time. Then Piña noticed something odd. In the cage, she saw one yellow butterfly, a large orange bee, and a black butterfly with purple markings. They were all beautiful butterflies, very different from her own species. Piña was surprised and amazed. How did these creatures get here, she thought. Piña knew better than to ask the question out loud. After a minute she tried pecking at the cage with her beak, but was unsuccessful, because the cage was too high. Piña began jumping up and down, hoping someone would notice her. Finally, a man walked over to the cage. Piña watched him carefully. Yes, hello little chicken, said the man who stopped at the cage. He was a good-looking fellow, dressed in khaki shorts, t-shirt, and shoes. Piña hopped off the cage. Where am I, she asked. We're in a place called the Butterfly Park, the man answered. Do you want to explore some more? Piña shook her head vehemently, and turned away from the man. It's okay little chicken, let's go see what else is there, the man said. Piña followed obediently behind him. When they reached a wide open area of grass near the zoo, the man pointed at the ground. There were thousands of butterflies flying around happily. Look, the man said softly. Piña looked over her shoulder. Her heart swelled with joy at the sight. Thousands of butterflies flew by, in all shapes and sizes, and colors. Piña couldn't help but stare at them. I didn't think you liked butterflies, the man remarked. Piña looked away and shrugged noncommittally. Well, maybe you can take care of them, if you want, he said. patting her head gently, as if making sure to not tickle her neck, since he knew that chickens don't like that much. Piña nodded slightly. She wanted to take care of these amazing creatures. She decided Piña wasn't sure why she was so interested in butterflies. The butterflies reminded her of a story from her childhood. It might even have been her name. Piña Butterfly Piña. Author's note.
Speech on. Verdict. Neck. Play. Control.